And you're all very welcome online. I think we've quite a number of people online. It's just for everyone in the room to know we've gone global. So I'm Eibhlín Mulroe. I'm the CEO of Cancer Trials Ireland. I'm going to talk a little bit about where I've been for the last few months at the end, not at the beginning. Today is the cancer retreat, and this was an initiative set up by Professor Seamus O'Reilly when he came on board as Vice Clinical Lead, as an opportunity for us as a group, as a team, as a club. I compared this to a sports club the other day in talking to one of the companies actually in the room, because that's what it feels like when you're part of Cancer Trials Ireland. It feels like you're part of a family, and a family that are trying to deliver the best treatments and the best opportunities for our cancer patients. But there's lots of challenges. There's lots of good stuff as well, which we want to hear about today. And I think Seamus, when setting this up, really wanted to create an opportunity where we can all come together and share that, because we're a very powerful voice. I came from the patient advocacy movement, as you all know, from IPOSI and MRCG, nothing about us without us. The same is true for academics, nothing about us without us. And in order to really get your voice heard, we have to come together as a group. And I'm going to talk through a few things today. I think the Wi-Fi is there for everyone, and the agenda is available. So this is my slides, and I want to remind us all, this may be motherhood and apple pie for many in the room, but our vision is very clear. We want to be indispensable, and we want to maximise cancer trials activity on the island. That's what we're about. And anything that involves either of those things, this organisation is involved in. And to do that, our strategy, we have 5 key strategic objectives that were set by the board, and I'm very happy that our chairperson, Deirdre Summers, is here today, and she's going to talk a little bit more about this. But the first and most important for the team in our office, the 60 people in our office, is maximise the contribution to the National Cancer Strategy. So what does that mean? In the National Cancer Strategy set back in 2017, they started talking about it, I think, in 2012, it was 5% of cancer patients on clinical trials. That's the target. We're not there. We're not even close to there yet. I think we're at 2 to 3%, unless something really great happens in the last 4 months. And COVID didn't help. COVID didn't help. Please remember, we had COVID. All of you came through a really tough time. There's a lot of people in here who worked in the hospital sites, who couldn't put patients on trials, who couldn't see patients, who were doing clinics online. That was a period of 2 years of just delays and reprioritising groups. And I think that's really important to remember. We're catching up now. This is the year where we're getting back and we're getting things open again. Optimal, stable and scalable talent to serve growth. So the people in our office and the people at the sites are really important in that context. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. Clinical research being fundamental. So this is all about a lot of what I do, what Seamus does, what other people in this room do. We advocate for more to both the government, to the stakeholders, to the HSE, but mostly to the Department of Health is the kingpin for us. That's where it all started. That grant that we get from the Health Research Board comes through the Department of Health. And that's going to be a real focus for me over the next while. We want a compelling all-island case, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, but I think you all know about the all-island case at this stage and all the amazing work that's happened over the last number of years, and particularly with the AICRI, who've done sterling work, and I'm a member of that steering group. We were meeting, my first event back to work was with them in Farmley last week, which was really about setting not us in Ireland as a leader with the US, but us in Ireland as a leader between the US and Europe. So we had European clinical researchers in the room and American clinical researchers in the room, and we were facilitating that. So it was like the Good Friday Agreement all over again, except this time it was about cancer research. So that's incredible. And we need to be, the final strategic point is we need to be financially stable and funded for growth. So in order to do this, everything we do, we have to be really careful with our funding. We're a not-for-profit organisation. We're not a for-profit. We have a regulator and the charity regulator. We also have, the most important regulator to me is the HPRA. So we have to be safe in everything we do. And that unfortunately has a cost in academic trials. We have to deliver clinical trials in exactly the same way
as a pharmaceutical company would do. And Jacinta's smiling at me there, our head of biometrics, and Olivia, who's our head of quality. And Angela will see this. You haven't been there for an inspection yet, but that is extremely important because that requires funding. So in terms of who we are and that club I talked about, we've 700 members, we employ 60 people, and this is the picture of our strategy. This is who we are. You'll see all of your clinical research groups in the black on the right, and that feeds into us. We live in RCSI as part of our HRB grant. But I'm back today after being off myself with cancer. I was diagnosed in November and went through, I have loads to say about that. Loads of really good things and loads of learnings for people who have been patients. And it's great to be, and I will be using that voice in a positive way over the next few years. But I'd say I have some reflections about us, because when you're away, it's awful. You know you're working hard when you feel like cancer is a break. And it was a bit of a break, I have to be honest, going through the treatment and recovering, because that's how busy we are in this organisation, you know. But you think, I think Maeve Larry told me to turn off my phone when I was going through the treatment, and I did, but I thought a lot about us and what we do. And I thought back to 2015, and when I took this job in May, this month actually, in 2015, to where we are now. We had 26 staff then in the office. We've 60 now, last count. We had a 20% cut to the HRB grant in 2015. We were really fighting to maintain our position as the national clinical research network in this country. Now we've got a 5-year grant. We got that 20% back. We've also got these amazing relationships with the universities right across the country because they've become part of it. The HSE has had to become part of it as well in terms of their contribution to the grant in each site. We had a 360k grant that year. Rob O'Connor's in the room. I think you were there then, Rob. And from the Irish Cancer Society. That's now, and I know Avril is coming later, the CEO, we now have a €1 million commitment for 3 years from the Irish Cancer Society. We had zero philanthropy. Like, we might have had a few hundred here and there, right? But we had zero philanthropy. It's now 14% of our revenue. So that's people who've gone out, like the amazing Pat Smullen and his wife Frances and his family, Hannah, Paddy and Sarah, and all of the others that have the property picnic is happening this next week, which was in memory of Louise Creevy, who was an amazing woman who was on one of your trials, and she sadly passed away, but the trial gave her time with her baby. And as a result of that, all of her colleagues in the property world are meeting every year in her memory and have raised, I think last year was 160k, and it's looking around the same this year. So this has increased. So the two things I want to pull out from all my thinking is people and funding. That's what makes this work. We need the money to do it, and we need you, the people at site. And I'd like to say the culture and the emotion attached to what we do is really positive in our community. I have never felt it so much as I felt it in the last number of months, but I've felt it a lot in the last couple of years. And anyone who's been here for as long as I have, and there's a few of you in the room, know what it was like before and know where we are now. So we're in a really good, we're on that, as a surfer, we're on that cusp of a wave and we're about to ride it. And we're out of, as long as there's no more pandemics, I think this is a really positive story for all the patients out there. And what I wanted to show, Angela came in 2 months, I think, before I got diagnosed as the COO. I say her name is no joke, Angel, because she took over and stepped in for me while I was sick. And the team, Olivia, Jacinta, and many project managers are in the room today who drove these trials. But these trials we were driving for during the pandemic. The meetings with some of those PIs I can still see 2 years ago going, why can't we start this in 2 months, you know? And we had so many issues, which I know Deirdre is going to touch on, as is Angela later. But these trials, like we've got breast cancer there, I think there's a 70 patient accrual target in that first one in Shamrock, funded by philanthropy. We would not be doing that trial without the Breast Cancer Ireland. Adept, Jerushka is running that as a lung cancer trial for older people. We don't do trials like that. This is incredible, you know, and And I'm sad about that particular trial because there's one site couldn't open because of an issue. Deirdre's going to talk about it later. And we go right through some fantastic radiotherapy trials. And I'm really glad to see a lot of the trials. Sinead I think is coming later today. You know, we had so many blocks to get things over the line, and now I can see it happening. I think IROG has been a big part of that. The NRG GY019 trial at the end is a rare ovarian cancer trial. I've got that right, haven't I, Olivia? That's the rare ovarian cancer trial. So that's part funded by the Friends of Cancer Trials Ireland. Wouldn't have happened without them. But it's also sponsored by NRG, so it's an American-funded trial. Oh my God, like 4 years of trying to get that over the line. Not just GDPR, but the hoops that we had to jump through with the US. And we'll talk about that. And it's the reason I went to ESMO with a poster and put off a test I was supposed to do for what happened to me in October to present on that, to present on those issues so we can do more of those trials. I'm not going to go into all of this, but I just want to remind all of you, this all-island collaboration was a long road. You know, you'll see Richard Wilson, he's now in Glasgow, and he keeps an eye on me, which I'm glad to say, but Richard was the lead PI in Belfast University Hospital whenever we started the whole conversation about re-signing that MOU with the Cancer Consortium. You'll see myself and Mairead O'Driscoll and others in NCI, where we were over there twice in a period to try and get that MOU signed. We've been in the Dáil, Maeve, you're in there as well. I'll never forget that day, sitting in a joint Oireachtas committee with masks on. I'm sure some people in RCE would have liked masks when they were there, but we you know, all of this stuff has led to where we are now. And we've got, and the last 2 points there, we've got a Peace Plus application, you know, for clinical trials, which we've a big application in for that. And we also, HRB announced an all-island grant, which some of you have applied for. So that's phenomenal. And I think all of these advocacy acts lead to outcomes like that. So I think this is more or less it is my final slide. So I always, who remembers me saying this? If Verena's laughing, Ken is laughing. Since the day I took this job, I say, someday the bus will come and run you over. And when it runs you over, you need to have evidence of what you've done, and you need to have it written down. Anyone who works with a regulator knows about writing things down, right? So if you see it, you write it down, so you can show them when they come in. And never was this more true than I didn't think the bus would run me over, but it did. And I got cancer in November. And I have to say, the team continued to do the job as a result. But my mind yourself message is, don't put off the tests. Don't put off. If you've got symptoms, go and get them checked out. In our jobs, we work very long hours, but you have to make time to mind yourself. So that's my final. So thank you. I probably went over the time, but I hope you don't mind.